I want you to take the time right now to think about the things that matter the most to you. Um, what is most valuable to you in your life? Imagine your emotional well-being is your most valuable asset, more precious than any material possession. The same way you wouldn't leave your valuables exposed, why would you leave your emotional health vulnerable? This video is about understanding how to protect that priceless asset by discerning who truly deserves access to your inner world. So what's up, everybody? Welcome to my channel, Finding Yourself Again. My name is Don Trey. I'm a narcissist survivor who's dedicated my life to helping people heal from trauma, toxic relationships, abuse, and childhood neglect, as well as mental health disorders. The purpose of this channel is to be a light and guide for you on your healing journey towards finding yourself. If this content resonates with you, then hit the subscribe button, drop a like or comment. And I ain't gonna hold y'all up, so with that being said, let's get into today's video. Alright, so I want to talk about why it's important to be cautious about who you allow into your life, especially when it comes to emotions. I want to talk about the types of people to avoid at all costs. I know that y'all seen the title, and I think that this is very important for people in general to know, not even just people that are healing, but people that want discernment, of who to include in their personal life, and so people can understand that your emotional well-being is one of your most valuable assets. So I'm going to talk about why it's important to be cautious about who you allow into your life, especially when it comes to emotions, right? So emotional vulnerability is a privilege, right? Sharing your emotions, dreams, fears, and time is a profound act of trust. This vulnerability should be reserved for those who have proven themselves to be safe, respectful, and reciprocal. Your emotional vulnerability should not just be given freely or open to anybody, right? They should meet certain criteria, which safe, respectful, reciprocal. They should meet those things. The cost of unhealthy connections. Unhealthy relationships aren't just annoying, they're energetically, emotionally, and even financially draining. They can stunt your healing, perpetuate trauma cycles, and undermine your self-worth. That's the damage, that's the cost of these unhealthy connections with these people. It could literally stunt your healing and just keep these bad negative trauma cycles going, basically. Protecting your healing journey. For people on a healing path, every connection matters. Allowing toxic people back into your life or forming new bonds with them can undo months or years of hard work, pulling you back into old patterns of anxiety, self-doubt, or chaos. So this is why it's very important to go no contact. I have videos about this you can check out, but you don't want to allow toxic people back into your life, especially if you've already got free from them, right? So, generally you want to distance or end contact with certain toxic people, right? So you definitely don't want to reopen that can of worms. You know what I mean? You don't want to reopen that. Your peace is non-negotiable. Remember, your peace and mental health are paramount. Protecting them is not selfish. It's a necessary act of self-love and self-preservation. It's necessary. Your peace should be non-negotiable, period. If you ever feel like you need to negotiate your peace with somebody, then that somebody ain't for you, right? That's how I look at it. That's how I see it. So I wanted to talk about the purpose of this video and a little bit about my experience. I made this video because I realized on my healing journey, In healing from toxic dynamics, I've came to understand that discernment isn't just a skill, it's a shield. Learning who to avoid is just as important as learning who to embrace. It's about recognizing patterns that undermine your well being and consciously choosing not to invite them into your precious space. This isn't about judging people as good or bad, it's about recognizing behaviors that are consistently harmful to your emotional health, right? It's about protecting yourself and your peace as you rebuild your life. Hey, y'all. So I know I'm in a different outfit. I ended up getting a little bit busy yesterday with some family and stuff. So, and plus I'm kind of extra caught up on my videos. So I figured I could take a little break from the videos. But nonetheless, man, I'm back at it. Uploading every day with this. So I want to talk about my brief experience for this video. So in my past long-term toxic relationship, I struggle with understanding who's really safe and who isn't. My emotional boundaries was usually blurred, and I learned the hard way the cost of giving my trust and emotional energy to people that consistently demonstrate traits that were detrimental to my well-being. This led to intense emotional turmoil and a sense of feeling lost. Now, on my healing journey, I recognize the importance of being protective and vigilant with my emotional space. It's a conscious choice to not let anyone in, because I learned that my emotional health and my peace are my most valuable assets. And like anything valuable, they must be guarded. So I make this video to explain the importance of your emotional well-being and why it must be protected at all costs. I never looked at it like this before, but now I look at my emotional health and my well-being as the most valuable assets that I can have. So let's get into the key points and some info and some skills for discerning and avoiding unhealthy connections. So the first one is going to be the chronic blame shifter or eternal victim. And mind you, all of these people are going to be people that you pretty much want to avoid, at all costs if possible. So for the chronic blame shifter or eternal victim, these people never take accountability for their actions. Every problem is someone else's fault, and they often use guilt or pity to manipulate others into doing their bidding or excusing their behavior. They draw you in with consistent complaints but never seek solutions or change. I definitely have had my fair share of the blame shifters, right? And some skills for this is going to be to observe their behavior, not their words. I'm sure we've all heard it, right? Actions speak louder than words. It's a true saying. And when blame is directed at you, calmly state your boundary or disengage from the conversation. For example, you could say something like, "I hear you, but I don't agree with that assessment." You could say something like that. The next person is going to be the covert manipulator or gaslighter. These people subtly twist reality, make you doubt your perceptions, and use things like guilt, subtle threats, or passive-aggressive tactics to control you. They might portray themselves as caring or helpful, making their manipulation harder to spot. You often feel confused, crazy, or you're constantly second-guessing yourself around them. I've been there. My toxic relationship was like this, and even other people. It doesn't necessarily have to be an intimate relationship. I've met other people, and in the beginning they hit you with all this flattery and all this. They talk about you nice. They up talk you to everybody. In around you, so you can hear it, right? And what that does, why that's so dangerous, is because that confuses you, right? And it starts to make you feel safe when you're actually not safe. You're not emotionally safe. It's just a tactic to bypass your alarm system, right? So some skills for this is going to be fact check your reality. Journal your interactions or talk to a trusted, objective friend to ground yourself in reality. So talk to people that are trusted but objective. It might be better to talk to a therapist on this one. But at the end of the day, there's things you can do, and you can journal, which is something that I like to do. And journaling has a lot more benefits than I think people really give it credit for, because for one, it's a progress tracker, right? And then for two, it's also helpful in a situation like this, where you can journal your interactions and then go back and read about the real interactions that you've had with this person. So it's very important, because you will have like data right there, right in front of your eyes, and it's not, and it's in black and white. It's not something that you're just trying to remember, like, did this person say this or did they not say this? No, you have it in black and white, so that's why it's important to journal. So the next one is going to be and these skills are continued right here. So trust your gut. Even small twitches. If something feels off, your instincts, as you know, are usually right. So if it feels off, more than likely it's for a reason. Next is going to be establish firm boundaries. Clearly state what you will and will not tolerate, and enforce consequences calmly if boundaries are crossed. I've talked about that before. I have a whole video on boundaries. So if you don't know about that by now, go check that video out first. Let's see. The next one, the emotional vampire / pessimist. These people drain your energy with constant negativity, complaining, drama, or excessive demands for attention. They rarely offer positive contributions or support. They only take. You often feel exhausted, depleted, or heavy after interactions with them. Some skills is going to be setting time limits. The time limit duration of interactions with these people, you're going to have to set time limits, because these emotional vampires or pessimists, they're always negative and stuff like that. These people are not beneficial to your healing, your mental health, your well-being. They're sucking your emotions away from you. They're actually taking from you, and it's more detrimental to you. These people are very dangerous. You need to watch out for these people for sure. You can also change the topic, by redirecting conversations away from negativity, which these people tend to try to draw you in, right? Emotional shielding. You can visualize a protective shield around yourself and recognize that their negativity is theirs. It's not yours for you to absorb. Other people, when they're being negative, hey, that's their life. It doesn't have nothing to do with you. So the next one, the boundary breaker / disrespecter. These people consistently disregard your limits, whether it's your time, personal space, choices, or your nose. They test boundaries, push for exceptions, and often act entitled to your resources or attention. After a while, my toxic relationship was more like this, but in reality, the toxic person was a boundary breaker the whole relationship. You know what I mean? To be honest with you. And I've had countless relationships with other people where they are breaking my boundaries as well. And I'm not talking about intimate. This doesn't necessarily need to be intimate. It can be any relationship with any human. This can even be family, friends, and a lot of times it is. Some skills for this one is going to be clear and concise boundaries. State your boundaries firmly, calmly, and without over explanation or apology. You don't need to explain your boundaries. You know what I mean? For you, they're your boundaries for a reason. You don't need to explain them to anybody. You know, if you are explaining them, that's doing them a favor. You don't need to, you know. And you never should feel like you need to apologize for setting a boundary. And if you feel like you need to apologize for setting a boundary, you might want to look into that relationship and see if it's really a healthy one, because it may not be. Okay, so for the boundary breaker, consistent enforcement, right? That is the most crucial part. If a boundary is crossed, follow, limit, or even end contact with this person. No is a complete sentence. You don't owe anybody explanations or justifications for your limits. That's very important to know. So the next one is going to be the deceptive persona or love bomber. So while not a type to avoid entirely, be extremely cautious of people who come on too strong, too fast, overwhelming you with attention, compliments, or intense declarations early on. I kind of talked about this. In another video, I definitely talked about this. You know, I ended up meeting somebody, and this wasn't an intimate partner. It was more so like a family member type of figure, even though we weren't related. And in the beginning, she showered me, you know, all these intense declarations and, you know, coming on too strong, too fast, and overwhelming me with all these positive qualities about myself, right? And I should have took it as a red flag. But what happened is it bypassed my security system, my emotional security system that I had set up after all the turmoil that I went through in my old relationship, you know. And because, you know, I was vigilant, but she bypassed my alarm system because of the manipulation, you know, the love bombing in a sense. And this wasn't even in an intimate relationship. You need to understand, you can be love bombed in other ways. People can tell you all the great qualities about yourself and make you feeling good, and eventually you become addicted to their validation. And that's what happens eventually. That's why this is very dangerous. So this can be a tactic used to bypass your discernment, where you turn your defense alarms off in order to rapidly establish control or emotional dependency from you before their true nature is revealed. And their true nature will be revealed, because the person that I'm talking about, her true nature was revealed later on. You know, when I ended up you know, when this person started to devalue me and started to say certain things that I didn't like, you know, and I addressed it with this person, you know, it was a problem. So that's kind of how that went. So some skills for this is gonna be slow down. Resist the urge to reciprocate intense emotions early on. Observe consistency over time. True character is revealed through consistent actions, not just intense initial words. And that's very important, especially for me, because at a point you could bypass my alarm system by these intense emotions too quickly. You know, having these way too quickly, it provides a false sense of like reality, kind of. Look for red flags, not just green ones. Pay attention to any inconsistencies, subtle devaluations, or controlling behaviors that emerge alongside the love bombing, right? These controlling behaviors are going to rear their head eventually. These people can't hide the nature of themselves, right? So it's very important to pay attention to people and the relationships that you have with people. And not only that, but their relationships with others. How do they treat others? How do they treat the person serving them their food at the restaurant? You know, how do they treat the the valet parking. Like, these things all matter, trust me, because the way that these people treat other people is eventually the way that you're going to be treated. So think about that. All right, so the conclusion. Remember, it's your protection, your empowerment. Remember that discerning who to allow in your emotional space is a vital skill for anyone on a healing journey. It's about recognizing patterns of behavior that are detrimental to your well-being. Also, remember that being protective of your emotional health isn't about being cynical or overprotective of your emotional or overprotective. It's a profound act of self-love and wisdom. You have the power to create a life surrounded by genuine and reciprocal connections that truly nourish your spirit and support your peace. And don't ever forget that. So that was the video of the types of people to avoid at all costs. These people can be very detrimental and dangerous to your life. So watch out when you're creating relationships with people. Pay attention to the ones that you're already involved with. And the things in this video should help you to navigate through these relationships. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm starting to get more comments and some more subscribers and views, so I really appreciate that. If you guys will hit the subscribe button, that'll help my channel out to get out there to reach other people just like you. Hit the like button, drop a comment, let me know your experiences about this. Let me know what you thought about this video and how you feel about this content. So you guys can email me at findingyourself@gmail.com. You can follow my Instagram at Findurselfagain, Findurselfagain, and that's the same for my TikTok. I also got a Facebook, Dontre Royal, DONTREROYAL. So yeah, you guys can hit me up on there, and I look forward to reaching out to you guys and seeing y'all again soon. Make sure that you guys are taking care of yourself, practicing radical self-acceptance, radical self-care, self-compassion, self-love, eating nutritious, healthy meals, exercising, validating yourself, partaking in healthy relationships, and ultimately learning yourself. Thank you for watching my video. I will see you guys on the next one. Peace and blessings. Bye.